Hey, good day, good evening, good morrow to you. Um, I've got a little bit of time on my hands right now because the garden I thought I was working in this morning, I'm not working in because the guy doesn't need me. Being the gardener for people, you come to realize a little bit of being like, one of the least important people in the pecking order of things. And I was brought up in South Africa, and we had garden services and maid services very cheaply. Um, Arguably, it's very cheap in South Africa today, but back in the 70s and 80s, where I grew up, it was pretty commonplace for a white family to have a black servant of gardening and or housekeeping. We had a once a week gardener growing up, and my mum was never really into having a maid in the house, but I had gardeners because of there being gardening. Guys would sometimes come back to the house like you hadn't seen the gardener for months, and he'd come and ask you if he'd come and say this. He'd say, "Want whack? I want whack." And well, I've never been like an adult really in South Africa. I never really had my own house or anything like that. I never employed anyone myself like that. But I have said to people who've come to me and said, "I want work," I said, "I can't help you. I don't have any work for you." But shit, I've had to live some of that this last year or so. This rejecting kind of the mainstream career thing. I've had to, I was doing some woodworking and some gardening. I've been doing gardening to, pay the rent. And I only have about 10 people that and at the best, I've got about 10 people. I've probably only got about 6 right now. I've lost a few along the way, not gained any this summer really. But I've sometimes had to go to folks and say, "Hey, can I do your garden today?" Or try and stretch my hours in the garden, do a few more hours because I get paid by the hour. Do a few more hours if I can. Not necessarily because I want to do the weeding or the digging or whatever, but I need the freaking money. That's why we all go to business. We're all in business mostly to earn money. I mean, ego may be attached to certain parts of it. You may want to be this or that, the best at this, or top of your field or that, or salesman of the year, or the most well-renowned surgeon, or whatever your thing is. Unlikely any surgeons are watching this. They're too far deeply indoctrinated to be watching this. And it seems to me, as I talk to people and go around, it seems to me that busyness is the key tool that is used to keep people in a left brain kind of mindset, keep people on the treadmill, keep people in a state of constant worry, a little bit, on the back burner. I mean, I worked in an office, very suit tie kind of offices for nearly 20 years, maybe 18 years, something like that, and always you find people a lot that are just rushing about from thing to thing and thing to thing and thing to thing, and that's a perfect example of what business is about: keeping people's minds totally preoccupied on the things of that we need to kind of keep this thing going, whether it be simply to pay the rent or pay the ego. And when people are out of their work, suit and tie, then they're busy with, say, perhaps family, or nowadays being entertained. We become so addicted to our entertainment that we're getting 3, 4, 5, 6 hours an evening of entertainment after being kept busy at work. So you know, leaves very little time for that right brain creativity. In fact, most people, when I talk to them about my sense of what the true nature of things are, most people end up saying, I'm just focusing on paying the rent, or I'm just focusing on keeping my head above water, or keeping things going, or I'm far too busy with this, or I'm far too entertained by that. My sister's a good example, because she realized that, oh, the vaccines might be causing certain kinds of illnesses, and got herself all hot and sweaty about, you know, anti-vaxxing. And yet, when you tell her that Walt Disney was some kind of creep and perhaps satanic or whatever, but certainly some sort of weird shit going on there. I mean, that's at perhaps the more the occultic level, but even at the surface level is like this you know, creation. They're creating these ideas in these their children's minds about what it is to be a, you know, a princess, or the hero, or the this or the that, and actually it's not about empowering the children, but actually robbing them of their power. It's all intended. If you don't know this already, Walt Disney and Jack Parsons of Jet Propulsion Laboratories were good pals, and they were all hanging out with who? Anton LaVey. Now, you know, I think that the devil, you know, I'm not going to go down that route. Fuck that. This is about the business. This is about business. I've been doing my damnedest to try and remain stress-free, because I know that stress, it's all a wind-up. It's all we're electrical systems, and to keep us under stress is exactly how you get sick, how you keep people under control, and how you stop us from spending time in the right brain. Time for meditation and inward reflection. I've been, yeah, I guess it's a few years now since I actively chose to go and start working with wood and be a bit like Noah, you know, a bit proactive about preparing for a potential. Initially, it was like, oh, prepare for a flood, but I don't know. Maybe we won't have to encounter that kind of thing in our lifetime. Perhaps we won't even have a third world war. Perhaps all these false flags that they keep dropping down on us will lead to nothing more than sort of a gradual increase in governmental centralization and control. And there's never any kind of major event that shakes us all up in that way. I may never need to actually build a boat, literally or figuratively, but I think maybe figuratively there is something in that, you know, in that if we're a Noah, and I spell it K-N-O-W-E-R, then we prepare this boat. We prepare this boat to sail the choppy seas, the flooded seas of insanity that this world is. And this has been my challenge, because I wanted so badly to stay out of busyness. But at the same time, yeah, I have a sizable amount of rent to pay each month, and you know, and well, there's only so many hours in the day that you can be busy, and I'm not, you know, the way that I work, being paid by the hour, there's just not enough hours and enough work to keep it going for much longer. So yeah. Anyway, I'm getting a bit whimsical here. I think it's because it's always this time, 10 days before rent day, and it's like, where the fuck is it coming from this month, you know? I've been waiting for something to break for me, you know, just putting one foot in front of the other, getting up every day. I'm up most mornings by 4 o'clock. A line for me is 6 a.m. It's a late start. It's 5:30 and 6 a.m. And I try to stay active you know, but not in the kind of frenetic, crazy, fucking thoughtless way that we've been brought to through this business thing. Be a businessman. That was what I was brought up to be, a businessman, you know. But whose business are we doing? I don't think we're doing the people's business. You know, yeah, I'm making good money here, man. Don't fuck around. I'm making fantastic coins. So, you know, let me at it. Well, good luck to you, pal. You know, I mean, I got no issue with a dude, you know, doing really well or whatever. You know, that's fantastic. But I guess if you remain in that, then like some of the clients that I have, you know, I have some older clients, 80 plus. They end up like collecting all of this stuff around them, and then in their dying days, you know, it just kind of gathers dust. You know, shelves lined with wonderful things, valuable things that they've exchanged for their time and what have you, and ends up being a bit hollow. One of the clients I work for, she's younger. She has a wealthy ex-husband who, not for much longer, but who has kind of enabled a very comfortable lifestyle. And, you know, even for her, it's left her kind of weakened in a bunch of ways. And I think that no matter how, I've got one or two wealthy family members, and they've all been busy with their business, and they are held up high as being fucking great achievers and all of this. But actually, when you consider how much time they've had to work on their soul, their inner self, then you realize that they're locked now, almost trapped forever in a sort of left brain paradigm, and it doesn't matter what you say to them. They're going to want to stay like that. So I notice I've had a thumbs up. That may well have been my friend Lee. If I missed a comment from you, I'm sorry. I don't look at the screen very much for that, and I'm not used to having people think. And but grateful anyway. You know, so they get lost in that. They get lost in that, and it's no good to you. My dad used to say this, you know. Oh, it's Jamie Brown. Jamie Brown, yeah, mate. If you're still listening, I tried my best to get onto your Hangout yesterday. Would have been my first freaking Hangout, but it turned out I didn't have Google Hangout on my phone, and so I tried to download that. I didn't know the password for Thing, and I didn't know this password for the iTunes, and it was a pain in the backside. I couldn't get hold of my wife who knew the passwords. I want to join you on a thing soon, man. I love your work, and you'll know me by my surname. My slave name is Manel, Dave Manel. So you may remember me because I've been on many of your, commented along the way. But I had to change my name. I decided to change this to this because I could talk more freely without people from my past hanging on to it. And I want to become more active in the community and so on. It's my time now. My son is, he's a year coming up for 14 months old, and moving on. So, yeah. Back at you, brother. It's awesome listening to your stuff, and you're in a good place. And what you represent to me, what you represent is the kind of the human side of this. I went to that convention and in Birmingham and so on, and I don't know. I don't want to get into like who's doing this and who's doing that. All I can do is be myself and trust that that my discernment to put my energies around people that are hopefully in the same kind of with the same mindset. So what you do is fantastic, and I really admire all the effort and time you've put into that, my friend. So thank you very much for that, sincerely. I haven't got used to the idea of just chattering though, and having and stuff like that for hours and hours. I think that, hey, it's Zane, the man with the rhymes. All right, bro. I wish you were in the UK too, by the way, in England, because I love doing this. I like a bit of singing. I love a little bit of satire. I like taking the wordplay to another level, and you know, maybe we can collab on something in the future. But it's just a fun thing to be able to do. You know, on my other channel, I'd done a few nursery rhymes, just jokey things about a year ago, just to kind of put a mark down there and so on. But yeah, so Jamie, I'm going along on Sunday to the Hyde Park thing, so I hope to see you there. Zane, I'll be looking out for any more tunage that you've got, and hopefully you guys don't stay too busy. You know, you got time for yourselves and for the love and finding all of that. Yeah, as I say, I've been a bit whimsical. I'm just feeling a little bit fucking bad, you know. When is the kind of the wheel going to turn? And yeah, okay, I hope you get down there. And Jamie's a road, and you know, pizza dough, rising snow, and words like ammo, hollow points, rolling 5 fat joints, avoiding the checkpoints, cops oink like pigs in the mud, puffin' bud, my lifeblood. Man, don't be talking about the bud, man. I've fucking run out, and I don't have the money to buy any, so I grow my own. And obviously I'm watching my girls get up, but it's months. I got 1 autoflower on the go, so hopefully it won't be too long, maybe, but I'm sure it's at least another 2 months before I'll be smoking the bud, man. I've got some old leaves, but yeah. Anyway, I'm just a bit whimsical because I'm like, fuck, this is hard going, you know. My wife's works a bit as a teacher, and we both want to be in the kind of, hey, how do we help people, you know, now that we know what we know, and other people are coming into this space without perhaps as much discernment because they've only just realized this stuff, or how do we help people stay well? Thanks, Zane. How do we help people stay well? You know, how do we translate this? I mean, if you think of that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the one where Mars one, where he went up to Mars, and people are starving for air, and they're unwell, and there's a woman with 3 breasts because of the toxins in the environment and all that sort of thing. Well, that is a parody of what's going on here, and damn, man, I want to help people to find their way to good health and wellness and so on. So, because that's always been my thing, is health and wellness, and I think that I can help people along that way. And hey, I mean, it's not really about the money. Obviously, you know, my landlord expects £2,000 a month off of me, but if I didn't need that, my life costs almost nothing, man. So in time, thanks, Zane. I'm gonna be I'm gonna get back to the farm, get back to the land. I'm here actually. I'll just quickly show you. I've got some stuff on the grow here. I'm really trying to do the thing, man. You know, this is my pak choi, very popular these days, and there's some corn here. Hey, got potatoes on the grow. What is this? A cucumber, and some pumpkin. So as you can see, I'm trying, man. I'm trying to be the farmer, stay busy, but obviously it's busy in a kind of way that's constructive. Check this out. I got some aubergine. I think you might call it eggplant or something else in other parts of the world, and some Brussels sprouts. If you don't know what they are, they're like tiny little cabbagey things. Oh, these are red ball ones, and some tomatoes and whatnot. Yeah, in this little greenhouse. I don't have any cannabis in this greenhouse because it's not my greenhouse. Otherwise, it'd be fucking rammed full of cannabis. Because I make cannabis oil as medicine, and I give it away to people. If they can afford it, they can maybe pay me a little bit. But it's really about doing the right thing for my friends, my human friends, from brothers and sisters. But you know, I'm taking a leaf from people like you, Jamie, and Zane. You know, there's so much. There's so much that we can do, and there's so much empowerment we can give people. And you may not know this, but I had a DMT trip 3 years ago, man, and that fucking smacked the head off my atheism and my sort of view on how little we were. In fact, I've just been
red pilling a dude, man. The guy whose garden I'm in, I just told him about a flat earth. Because he's like, oh no, we're a black dude, and he's like, oh, we're nothing really, we're not special. Oh, no, you're fucking super special, my brother, super special. And let me tell you a little bit about it, flat earth. But then he said, I'm really interested in space, you know, how does that work and all that? Oh dude, I don't believe in space, other than the space between a boy's ears. That's dark, deep outer space, I'm sure. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up there because I feel somewhat I've been doing this for a little while now, the going live thing, and I'm not used to having people actually on the other side of the line. I know, Jamie, I'm gonna have to get used to it because I really want to be a mouthpiece for helping to wake people up. But an NPC, he could be just, I don't know what was that again? NPC, I remember did you say something? Someone told me what an NPC was the other day. But anyway, I'm just not, used to it, and I don't want to waste your time. That's the funny thing. So if we were in a conversation, I'd feel like, a new player character, non-player character. Oh, right, is that the? Yeah, I know that. I think about that, but well, in my DMT experience, I kind of got this idea that we were all connected. I have done a little video on it. You might be interested in that. But it was a weird thing that the guy that gave me the DMT, he didn't do it, but I looked at him during the trip and blew my fucking mind, man. He didn't seem to me of the same humanness that I think that we all are. I know that sounds a little bit fucking weird, and I think it needs explaining, but I'll just point you to that my first DMT video, because I don't want to take up your time now if you don't want to listen to it. Yeah, so the DMT trip, my friend Zane showed me anyway, that my experience was that we are all connected, all one. It's all love, and and so I'm trying to live like that. I'm trying to bring that love, that one love, and that one connection, and so on. And to have people that are non-player characters or not whatever, just there to fill the gap. I get that. I get how when you look at some people, you go, fuck me. You are absolutely like deaded in the brain, and that's, I don't mean to sound unkind when I say that, but that's really what seems to be coming across. Now, I traveled in America back in '88, and I came across some people that I think were already chemically damaged by all the fucking fluoride and all the other shit that they pumped down. And of course, Americans had fast food long before we did out in Africa. So I had fast food as a child. But I was 19, 20 years old, and I was meeting like my peers, and I was like, ooh, you guys, there's something different about you, and I don't mean that unkindly. I just meant like there was like a sort of a blandness or a dumbness. I mean that with respect and kindness, but a dumbness. And I'm like, that's now, I didn't think about it at the time, and I didn't really, but now I'm like, there's something different about them. And no, not Americans, just in we're all the same, but just in terms of those people that have been perhaps chemically fucked up. They've been chemically fucked up, and they are they've lost their ability to kind of connect to the right brain, or they've lost their ability to connect to this human thing that we're talking about, and that does render them to be non-player characters, or just there to fill the gap, to be the traffic warden giving you a ticket and annoying you or whatever else. I try not to dismiss any of these possible scenarios, because there's so much unknown. But at the same time, I think if that were true, then the system wouldn't have to work so hard to fucking poison them or us. So is it is it possible that you can render, this is interesting, is it possible that you can render a totally valid human, like a proper enriched baby? I mean, my child, comes in, like every baby in my view, comes in fucking fully kitted with everything they need, and then over time, the parents, the societal construct, and the chemicals and the things, they rob that true spirit. And so that robbed spirit then ends up becoming like a non-player character, like just a drone, and going through the motions, doing the business, and you know, filling in the forms, and doing exactly what they're told. And that's obviously what the system wants us to be. So, are they creating NPCs, or are some people born in as NPCs? Now, to answer that second question, I think now that I've found the flat Earth, and it gave me all this truth about it, would be an interesting experiment. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, not everybody has the DMT kind of breakthrough that I had. I mean, the guy who got it for me said it was the most, he's come out the Himalayas and connected to the wazoo with people in that kind of community. So he said it was like primo fucking shit. So, because I've met someone else who synthesized it in a lab. He made it himself and said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see anything like that. I didn't have anything like that. And equally, when you look at people with ayahuasca experiences, you know, there are variations. But getting back to when I've discovered all of this, I've realized that actually as a child, I knew that there was something else going on. My mom couldn't satisfy me with her answers of what it was. But you know, if you think a certain way, you can't really express it. You can't say, you can't know that what other people are feeling. So it does struck me, Zane, that actually it's possible that not everybody comes in with the same gear. Not everybody comes in with the same potentiality for reaching this sort of Christ consciousness, or this higher level thinking, or to become an active player, you know, a participant, as it were. You know, maybe my two sisters are not seeing what I see, you know, they're not buying it. My sisters won't talk to me really. They think I'm talking shit, total shit. My father and I fell out at Father's Day on Sunday. Totally, because, you know, 2 years ago I present him with the flat earth when I knew my shit, you know. And he's an old sailor boy, and him and I have fallen out heavily over this. He won't discuss it. And now he's completely fucking, you know, wanting to cut me off, and doesn't want to, you know what I mean, if I don't, you know, and I've gotten a little irate with him because he won't fucking hear me and all that sort of stuff. So you start to wonder, yeah, is it possible that that some people are just here to fill spaces? They're these characters, whilst others, and this comes back to the DMT thing actually, and I know it sounds a little bit egoist, but in the remember in the DMT, it's like a near-death experience, and everything that I care about, everything that I'm left with is, I'm out of control of it. You know, I'm just getting information. And I started the experience. 5 minutes later, I knew that there was a God or something greater than me, or greater than this. That's how it is. It was a transformation total. But I also got this sense that, this is the ego part, that I was a higher being, or a higher, not better, but a higher power, or a higher, more significant being. Let's say, talking chess pieces, right? My friend next to me was a pawn, and I was like a bishop, or the rook, or something like that. Maybe even a queen, or a king, but not the board, not the player. I wasn't the board. I wasn't, you know, I don't want to sound like I was saying, oh, I'm Lord of Kings of fucking, I'm God, or I'm not trying to say that, but I am saying that I got this download that there is some kind of a hierarchy of humanity, and that my friend, who was a Jewish lad, was almost like a helper. He was going against his people's wishes, but he was there to help me to achieve something. But he wasn't we weren't peers in this realm. There was a seniority. I wasn't the boss, but I was a very important player on the board. So, having said that, yes, is it possible that there are pawns and then there are higher value pieces on the board? I mean, it could be, and it could be that there's 3, 4, 5 levels of hierarchy, you know? I mean, this all plays into sort of ideas of reincarnation and so on. You know, maybe I've reincarnated this time, having come from a point of being an NPC, having never had anything important to do or say as part of it. I was just a go along and so on. And certainly the first 47 years of my life until I found tea and the flat earth, where I would probably say that I could have arguably been just a bit part player. But actually, as I say, the DMT showed me something else, and it was like, wow, you are important. Now, I've never, I mean, I only started talking about this now, that perhaps because I've tried to be very generous about this and say, well, I'm sure that if everybody had the experience, they'd see and feel exactly what I've felt. And I'm not trying to set myself up as being somehow different and better than anybody else. I'm just saying this is what I encountered. You know, this was the experience I had. I hope that's helpful, and I've yabbered on for a bloody long time now. I'm gonna let you lads go. And Jamie, if you're still there, yeah, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you for real. And you know, thanks and everything. And Zane, thanks your rhyming, my friend. It's awesome. It's awesome, and keep at it, my brother. We'll talk again soon, and you guys have a superb day. Love and all of that sort of stuff. What's that? I sure hope it's. I used to wear glasses. I sure hope it's not some sort of simulation or mind thing. Yeah, or mind prison where Agent Smith NPC programs all around us. Well, if you think about it, I mean, if you think that this is a challenge, right? If you think about it like this, if we are challenged to come here, learn something, then we absolutely need the NPCs, or the non-player characters. We actually need, sometimes I think of that, I think, well, you know, what if the Freemasons know that that they have to, you know, their job here is to create that disturbance in order to create the kind of the growth. Because if you look at like a, just for example, not to pick on rich people, or even on the dole, I've got a friend who's on the dole. He's been a dole cheat, and that's their term. But you know, he's kind of claimed dole that he wasn't entitled to and stuff like that, and got lazy on it. And rich kids, they get lazy on it. You know, their parents give them everything, and they become weak. Not always. I'm generalizing, of course. You know, on both counts, of course. But it weakens us. You know, we can be weakened by these things. So, you know, arguably, our experiences, our hardships, our trials are exactly what has made us the strong souls that we are. How did you get a wrench? Anyway, you know, that's what we are, and I mean, that's what maybe that's what it is, you know, and maybe we need not to be quite so. I mean, not that I'm fucking shilling for the Freemasons and stuff like that. I'm all about being honest, you know. I fucking don't have time for the bullshit, but maybe there's a reason for it, and maybe that's what we're here for. And all of us who are coming together on this platform are of those people. I look at some of the, like Roxanne Glenn and Victoria, and you know, those are, you know, two strong women that are coming into this movement, and some of the blokes that are in it, you know, just fearlessly, like Jamie, fearlessly sort of standing their ground and doing their thing, you know. This is part of us. The only reason we're doing this is because of the shit. Yeah. So without it, we'd be fucking nowhere. We'd be sitting and watching the World Cup football, you know. So I've really enjoyed having a little bit of company on this chitter chatter. I'm grateful to you lads for joining me. Thank you very much for your time and patience. But yeah, I look forward to being part of other groups so that we can all kind of chitter chatter without it being just about me blathering on. What's that, Zane? I hope there's some more land and we can break over the ice area to be the next pond. Okay, it's okay. You're stimulating me to talk now. Fuck. All right, listen. This is what I think about that. I think, who knows? But yeah, I think if you go east and west, possibly, I think that we can take the sun with us, possibly. You know, because the sun centers itself on you. Now, obviously, we know that the higher north and south, or the lower south we go, or the higher north we go, so the sun starts to drop into the sky, and eventually, perhaps it's going to be behind the horizon. But on the east-west, so I say below the visible horizon, but when we go east-west, what if, you know, not that I'm a fan necessarily of the square model or the repeating model, but, well, you know, what if that's possible? And of course, if that were possible, then everything they would do, because they would know, think about it like this, right? When they came up with the Ball Earth model, and then when they came up with rocketry and all this sort of stuff, Pac-Man, yeah. I looked at that for a while, and I can't. Obviously, I can't. I mean, you know, the sun rendering anew in a you know, they call Japan the land of the rising sun. So, you know, in the olden times, did they go, well, okay, the new sun, Pac-Man's in from that side? Yeah, okay, possibly. But so where I was going was that perhaps, you know, what they wanted to do was have the ball lie there, but once the ball was deflated, and they must have known we'd work it out eventually, then they would want to have second and third base kind of or third tier deceptions. We see that with 9/11, you know, where you can be a truth seeker and get like to level 1. Perhaps level 3 or level 4 is when you realize that there were no planes, you know, but they've created the plane story, and they've created the fucking engine coming out of the other side. You know, they dropped an engine on the other side so as to make you think that there was a plane, but then they put the wrong kind of engine that doesn't fit with the things, so that gives the conspirators something else to work on, and they're fighting over which kind of plane it could have been and all this sort of shit, rather than there was no plane. So the same is true with the Earth. You know, they would have had a backup model, and I think that's possibly arguably why they use the AE model, and why everybody from, you know, the beginning has been banging in the AE model. Right on. Gatekeepers like Alex Jones never actually talking about aeroplanes, or Joe Rogan flipping his stance on the moon. The Joe Rogan flipping thing is an interesting one for me, because, you know, he was willing to talk about the moon landings, but again, he was probably on a script anyway, so he'll say whatever he wants to say. But it does make you wonder whether a guy who's willing to talk about the moon landings, well, maybe he was there, he's that sort of level 3. Let's say there's 10 levels of deception, and he's level 5. Yeah, he's halfway down the rabbit hole, and he'll handle the stuff that's there. And maybe, you know, he always knew he'd have to flip, or he was like, okay, listen, you're going to have to flip. But there's another way of thinking, you know, what if he learned something? He's like, okay, I can see why I need to flip, you know, I'm willing to flip. I sometimes look at these Freemasons and so on, and I do wonder about that, whether they know something that if we knew, you know, we'd go, okay, I get why we're curtailing human expansion. Because Europeans back in the 15th, 16th century, they didn't know about America, right? So there was a whole bit of land there that was just waiting to be discovered, so-called waiting to be discovered. You know, is it possible that there's more land that they've still hidden from us, and the ball hides that? But back to your kind of questions, and I do wonder if we can't create more land. Like, it's not my theory, I've heard someone talk on this, whether we can't actually take the sun. Well, this is my theory, that we can take the sun with us. That the sun, we always know this, that the sun renders, well, I'm kind of accepting this idea that the sun renders for me personally and renders for you personally. So I think that it's possible for me to get it, if I keep going east or west, perhaps I could render it. What was that? I always wonder if the Masons think they are protecting us from ourselves. Imagine all the ways we would have over on the... Yeah, well, look, I mean, the thing is, all right, when I think about this, Masons protecting us from ourselves and so on, but then I go, why fucking poison us? Why lie? Why not just tell us the truth? We're able to fucking handle this truth, you know? I think we are. Or maybe we have to find it ourselves. Yeah, the sun rendering. Well, yeah, you can't gain on it, yeah. And you can't gain on the sun, you can't. And the same is true when you kind of take off in an airplane. I once took off from Abu Dhabi or somewhere in the Middle East, maybe it was Dubai, but we took off just after sunset, right? About 10-15 minutes after sunset. And then as we got up to 20-30,000 feet, poof, there's the sun again. And I had another sunset, so I got 2 sunsets on that one day. So I know that as you rise higher, then the sun will continually sort of move away from you up until a point. I think that seems to be with the high balloons that there is a limit to how high the sun will render before you reach the roof or nothing. But it follows you left and right. You know, it'll go east and west with you. So are we able to take it there? I mean, obviously that's outside of the toroidal idea and You know, I'm a big fan of the toroid kind of model, and you know, but I don't hang my hat on any of these because we don't know. So I'm just spitballing, throwing it out there, getting people to think, hopefully, sharing ideas, mine or other people's ideas, and you know, just sort of adding to the conversation on these things. And yes, I think that it's very possible. Well, I mean, more than plausible that they're hiding land, and that models that have been seeded to us are there, particularly, specifically to dissuade us from that notion. You know, I don't know about the ring model. You know, that there's just an ice ring around us and so on. I don't know. I've got this theory, right? If you look at if you look at look, I think when it comes to the sun, looks like it's kind of going up and down, and maybe it is, but maybe it's just simply the perspective issue of like the plane flying away from you. As it comes to you, it's rising, and as it goes away from you, it's falling. And I think that is an optical reality that will mean that we always see rainbows as round, and because the further it goes away from you, the more it's dropping off from you. But the high point is, you know, and so if you stayed on the equator, say, or just within, you know, 30 or 40 degrees of the equator and headed east and west, would it always sort of remain sort of in a similar position? And do we, if we are creators, this is a reach, but if we are creators, can we create new land? Can we form new land as we move across the expanse? That's a bit of a stretch, but anyway, I've gone on a little longer than I thought I would. But lads, thank you very much. It's been awesome. Saying we'll chat again, and Jamie, you're an awesome guy, man. Oh, you're welcome, Zane. Creating land, yeah. Well, we are creators. While I'm on the point of land, I do think, though, that if we've had floods, then what they call in science, or in geography, they call the continental shelf, I would suggest to you lads is, all right. Maybe I got it from you, Jamie, the creating land. I don't know. I don't want to claim too much credit for any stuff, because, you know, it all comes down to us from somewhere. But I was going to run off on a tangent then. Thoughts slip my mind. Landhead. Yeah. So continental shelf. That's it. So the continental shelf, I think, might be the perimeter of the original continents. So the continental shelf can stretch out a few hundred miles from the shoreline, what we know as the shoreline now. So if there was a break in the firmament, if waters came flooding in, or there was a flood of a massive sort, and sea levels were risen, then a good indicator to that would be, where's the continental shelf? Because plate tectonics can't be right in the way that I learned them, and therefore, you know, what we see isn't created by the shifting and moving of the continents. I don't accept that anymore, because this was created. So I think that the continental shelves will give us a clue as to where the original beachfront apartments would have been, you know, in a time before such a massive flood. But I'm happy with the idea that there have been many floods, or I'm comfortable with that concept. But I think if there was a major flood that they talk about, the Noah flood type flood, then we should consider that our original coastlines may well have been very different, which obviously connects Europe. Even mainstream science says Britain and Europe are connected, and it connects America and Russia, and you know, it's all one big. It is actually one big. What they call Gondwanaland might well be the whole of it. You know, it might have been much more land, because again, you know, if you think about a creation so intelligently designed, then you wouldn't really necessarily need to make it 70% water. You wouldn't need to make it 70% water and 30% land if that's the true numbers. You know, you would, well, you want more land really, because land is what we can use. The oceans are great for the fish, but we're not meant to be eating that. So you know, so I do wonder about that, whether maybe it was a 50-50 split between the water and the land. Or hey, have you guys ever considered this, that, you know, we're the microcosm to the macrocosm, and therefore the dome above might be your skull, separating the waters from the waters, the water of your brain, your inners, and the water of the atmosphere around us. Anyway, just a little throwaway, a little Easter egg. I've really enjoyed this. It's been really, really liberating. And Jamie, I can't wait to get onto your hangout, my friend, and you know, do some chitty chatty. I look forward to it. Eh? All right. Well, I'm gonna fractal. Everything in the DMT experience is like fractal. Everything is kind of fractalized. In the DMT, nothing was solid anymore. This turns into just waves of pulsing, beautiful pulsing energy. This branch and its leaves. It's the most beautiful thing. Anyway, I'm gonna rock and roll now, lads. I will do this again because it's been most fun, and hopefully I'll be able to catch up with you guys one way or another. Have a super